All right, we are back in the booth, and what we got planned for today is we're going to do this 1/2 ounce lipless crankbait in kind of a peanut butter and jelly pattern. I'm going to be using a new ColorShift paint on this one, so we'll see how this thing turns out. So we've already got our white base coat on, so now I'm going to take a small stencil that I have for a crawl, and we're going to go ahead and paint this thing on. So let me get this thing locked in, get it turned up where we can see it. Let's get it lined up. Let me get my scissors. I'm going to cut this flat. It just works better if I can get it right on there where I need it. Sometimes you just gotta customize your stencils and just try to get it toward the bottom. So I'm not going to spray the whole stencil at one time. I'm going to do bits and pieces of it. So let's go ahead and do this bottom. And we'll slide it down. I think it's going to be about perfect for this. I just got to do it in sections. I think what I'm going to do is try to do up here and back really quick, just to make sure I got the bottom covered. And it is, and then we'll just connect this right here. And then I'll go ahead and do whatever adding on here I'm gonna do to it. Okay, so that turned out pretty good. I'll go ahead and freehand this in the bottom. I kind of want it dark because I am going to be using the ColorShift. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to extend some of these up to the top of the bait. That's just the way I like to do it. You don't have to do this. I just like it going up to the top. Some of the stencils are smaller. Some people like to roll it over the top. I'm not that guy. I like to leave it on the sides. I don't roll it on the top. And then what I'll do is we'll take a modeling stencil, and I'm going to turn this pressure down a little bit. And I'll do a little modeling on this. Get a little bit up here. I'm not going to cover it up. I'm going to let the ColorShift kind of be the focal point for this little bait. And I'm going to take a different stencil. This is a detailed, it looks like a creature feature stencil. It's from Whitmore Farm. And I've cut the stencil, so I've actually lost the name. So just go to www.whitmorefarm, and it's a detail stencil. It looks like a reptile or something. I'm going to do it on top on this bait today, just to do something different. And it'll give it a real wicked look. And you can see, especially after I get it on, I get the ColorShift on it, it's really going to make it pop. So we're just going to roll it over and do this side. I'm going to lock it down You don't have to do it this way. I do it this way all the time, so I'm kind of used to it. We covered that on up. We'll run it on up a little bit more. Get this eye, and then I'll do my piece here. And then I'll just extend my shell pieces up the way I like it. Okay. And then I'll take this stencil and just put just a little bit of modeling on the front. So we'll let this dry and I'll be right back. All right, that's dry. So what I'm gonna do now before I change the color in the gun is I'm gonna do my lines on the bottom. Just remember to line it up with your hook hanger. Put it all the way on the bottom. And just run you a little bit of coat on there. And that gives it kind of a cool look. And we'll go ahead and take this and just run it over the face. And that's all I'll do. We'll let that dry, then we'll come back and start putting our ColorShift on. All right, so we're gonna spray our ColorShift now, and the one I'm gonna be using is a Green Stuff World Psychotic Illusions. And it gives it that kind of purple, blue type color. I catch a lot of that in spring, but it actually gives a really cool looking PB&J colored bait. And the cool thing about these Green Stuff World paints is, you know, usually it only changes the color of something black, but it also will change the white to a degree. So let's try this new paint. I haven't used this color yet, and let's just see what it does. And I'm just gonna go up the lines, and it's doing exactly what I want it to do. Giving a really neat looking color. We'll go ahead and hit the top, because like I said, it's only gonna, it will change the color of the black, but it also does something to the white in this case. It kind of gives it a weird kind of peanut butter color. I've played with this with another paint that they have, and it really does a neat job. And you can see it's a really cool looking color. You can see it on the bottom really good. It goes purple, blue, and then it's got like a beige color that it changes it to. So we're gonna let that dry, and we'll come back and get some eyes. All right, so we are back, and we're gonna put some eyes on this. We're just gonna put some solid black eyes on it. I think it's gonna make the bait really pop. So let's get her locked in and grab an eye. These are gonna be 6mm. Yeah, that's gonna be perfect. I'll grab one for the other side, loosen it up, and it really does have a wild looking finish. I'll take it out of here and let you see it if I don't keep hitting my head on the camera. And it just gives it a like I said, almost the perfect PB&J bait. So we'll hit some UV-LS on this, then we'll get some UV resin on it, and it really should jump. so let's go ahead. I've got some UVLS already in the gun. Let's turn our fan on. Let's get a coat of, let's wet this thing down. And then we'll go over what we did. Okay. So we'll let that dry just for a second, and then we'll come back and go over the steps. All right, so let's just go over what we did. So this is I believe it's a Yozuri blank. I've had this blank for a while. I can't remember where I want to say I got this from alternativelures.com. You can go check him out. He's got cool blanks. So what we did, we started out with a white base, and then I took some golden black, which is just a water-based paint. Probably one of the better ones. I like golden, and the reason I like them is they're pretty much airbrush friendly, ready to go. You don't have to reduce them. You can just spray them through your gun no matter what you're spraying through. That's something else I wanted to say. You're gonna, I mean, I use a Creos PS771 with a 0.18 needle, but I've been airbrushing for 10 years, so that may not be a great fit for somebody just starting out. You may want to go with an Eclipse with a 0.35, or you could go with a Creos, maybe a 3 or maybe even a 2 to start until you kind of get used to airbrushing. So every gun is gonna, well, you got to use it for the situation. I like to use the 0.18 when I do my stencil work because it sprays a very light pattern, especially when you're down around 15. It's gonna do you a really good job. But when I do some of this other stuff, I have to use the my Iwata HPCH, which is got solvent-based needle packing in it, so I can, I won't mess my gun up when I'm spraying this stuff. So just thought I'd throw that out there. So then, we painted the base coat white. I don't bore you with that, so I don't do that on camera. The videos kind of get long enough. I used a little crawl stencil to put my pattern on. I used the Louisville stencil to do the bottom and do the little bit of modeling on there. I used it's kind of a creature feature stencil from Whitmore Farm to do the top, and it looks, like I said, it looks really cool. It's different. It's not the same old thing everybody's doing. We use the modeling stencil because it's just a must when you're doing the crawl baits. It just kind of really gives it that finishing touch, especially on a bait this small. Go with the small size on that. And then we put black eyes in it, but then we used a new ColorShift. This is a ColorShift metal from Green Stuff World, Psychotic Illusions. And it pretty much did, I've got another one from them called Darth Blue. This one has a little bit more purple hue to it, but it still is a great, what I would call grape jelly, peanut butter and jelly pattern. I catch a lot of fish on that color. I'm doing this for me. So what we'll do now is we're gonna just let the UVLS dry. Then I'll come back, we'll put some UV resin on, then we'll just wrap everything up. All right, so we're ready to get our resin out. I get asked this a lot, what brand resin do I use? I use Illuma UV. Some people don't like it. I mean, they've kind of changed the formula. I use the red label, and it works really good for me. But I mean, I'm sure any UV resin will do a good job. But you can see this thing is, when you put the resin on it, that's when this thing really starts popping. And you can really see that purple. And that is really a cool looking bait. Don't have to put a lot of this on. The last couple baits I've gotten a little bit carried away with it. I got to slow that down. A lot of times you got enough on the brush because it's already good and wet. You don't want this thing to start dripping. So I'm gonna go over it really good. I see I've got the hook hanger on top already matted up with stuff, so I'm gonna have to poke it through. Go ahead and wipe some of that off. Well, the thing is, when when it's warm, especially out here in the shop. I used to have to warm this, especially in the winter time. I didn't want to do it when it felt like honey. I always had a lot of bubbles and I'd have to fight that. So that was the way to combat that, was to kind of, I got a heat plate out here and I'd warm it up when it was cold. But see, it's not cold out here now. It's going to be 80 some degrees here today in Georgia. And I don't have to do that. So then you really got to watch, because it'll get loose on you and you don't want to put too much on it. This bait's just got some ridges in the base of this, on the stomach belly. And I want to make sure I get up in those ridges, because I don't want to have to redo this bait again. But yeah, really turned out really cool. The ColorShift is fantastic. I've gotten, so these are some of my favorite ColorShifts. You have to order them from Spain, and it takes about 10 days to 2 weeks to get them. But I'll tell you what, with the results I'm getting from it, I'm going to be ordering from them. That's not going to be an issue. So let me get this in the box, and then I'll bring it back out and show you the final result. All right, so we have the finished product. And it turned out really good with the Psychotic Illusions ColorShift. Gave it that PB&J look. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you know when I have upcoming videos. And like I always say, I'll catch you next time. Thanks.